a mystical revelation of a new self-identity in human consciousness. Crowley was at the right time and in the right place, and just crazy enough and just audacious enough to give voice to revelation. He was positioned to do it, and he had the language, the poetic language, to give voice to that. And giving voice to the next step in human consciousness is the very definition of the word prophet.
The container is now open. Lon Milo Duquette is one of the leading occultists of our time. He's written some of our greatest classics in the genre, and now a novel, Young Aleister Crowley and the Magician's Revolt. It's a fun and wild ride through this super romantic era in Western magic. We asked him all we could about Aleister Crowley, what makes him such an important figure in the history of Western magic, and why he's still so relevant today. All that and more on this episode of The Container. Once and for all, can you settle the dispute? Is it Crowley or Crowley?
Crowley pronounced it himself, Crowley.
Like the bird.
And he said it rhymes with holy.
Okay, cool.
But you can pronounce it any way you can pronounce my name any way you want. As a matter of fact, you can pronounce all the Hebrew letters in Kabbalah any way you want.
Nice. That's such a relief.
Yeah.
Sometimes when you're reading those angel names, it's like, dude, I don't know. I don't know what I'm saying, really.
Your guess is as good as anybody else's opinion. Okay.
Right on. Yeah. So probably the biggest mystery about Aleister Crowley we've solved in the first minute. So that's good. I've got a list here of some of the books you've written about this man. Understanding Aleister Crowley's Thoth Tarot, just a magisterial work. I love that book so much. It's all dog-eared and chewed up on my copy. Then The Magic of Aleister Crowley was recent, and that you covered the rituals of Thelema. And then now the Young Aleister Crowley and the Magician's Revolt, which is a novel. So it's like you have such a relationship to who is widely regarded as like the most important occultist in the West in, I don't know, at least the last 2 centuries or something like that by a lot of accounting. So like, who was this guy?
I don't want to just start off by saying, well, he was like a spoiled English, sort of like a Tom Brown schoolboy character. But that would be unfair. Okay, he was like an avant-garde type poet character. He was born in 1875, so that he was about 25 years old, and he was a rich kid. His father was a wealthy brewer. Okay, kind of a paradoxical character. His father sort of set up a chain of pubs. In England, the brewers, the brewers set up their own pubs. So they set up the pub, the brewers owned the pub, and they served only the brewers beer. But Crowley's father did something else. He set up pubs in like very, very working class areas, mining communities, and were real working men that they needed a lunch too. Okay, so he also offered sandwiches and stuff. So it was like a chain of 7-Elevens. Yeah, it really caught on because it was not just drinking and socializing. It was just a whole herd of textile workers or miners on their lunch break coming in. Okay, it was a great idea, and it made them very rich. The family, very rich. But at the same time, he and his mother belonged to this sort of evangelical, what we would call today evangelical Protestant. Jesus is coming back at any second, and the rapture and stuff like that. Uh, that whole concept's only about 200 years old, really. And they were on the forefront of that. They were Darbyite Plymouth Brethren, and he was a lay preacher. So Crowley, as a child, was raised on just the Bible. Uh, but he was a very bright kid. He had asthma and stuff. So in order to build up his body and stuff, he sort of went into rock climbing and mountain climbing, and sort of like a Teddy Roosevelt character, who was kind of a sickly child that really got control over their physical buildup. And he was educated at Trinity College, Cambridge, and he liked writing poetry, and he wrote poetry sort of in the style of Swinburne or Shelley or Keats, and but he was always kind of a wild kid, and it seems now historians are looking back at in more detail about his upbringing. It seemed in Cambridge, he came in contact with, I guess, people that we would today call British intelligence. Okay,
Mm-hmm.
in those days they didn't have professional spies; they just had rich English kids could travel on their own and report certain things. Okay, so,
Send the fail sons of all the rich men. Yeah, send their fail sons out. That's a good idea.
yeah, and it was a cheap way to get good intelligence. In the meantime, they felt they were doing their patriotic duty. And but be that as it may, he started to get interested in mysticism, and he eventually bumped into a character while he was mountain climbing. Oh, did I say he was a record-holding mountaineer?
Crazy.
Go to a mountain climbing record book on how many days at some altitude or other in Himalayan things, and Crowley's there.
Still to this day, he's that record.
Yeah, he just set the record. He keeps the record.
Wow, yeah. Man, it's so interesting. I want to pause here because there's this on an emotional, psychological level. It's so compelling that sickly children often end up becoming mystics, or many mystics come from sickly childhoods. It's my sense, and I'm just thinking about this sort of relationship to your body that being sick a lot can have, and then in the air swirling around you is this millenarian apocalyptic language of his father, who's like also this master of industry. So he probably is this vortex of energy, and is like has these incredible hallucinatory visions that he's like dealing with. It's so just right there. It's like, dude, you can feel the guy coming in, you know. He can just, it gives me chills.
I couldn't have said it better myself. Uh, so he was uh, sort of always sexually adventurous. Okay, and there were great literary characters of the day, especially in England, who were also uh, uh, sexually adventurous. Oscar Wilde would be the okay, and
How much does Oscar Wilde overlap with him in life?
not
Does
much, not
not
much.
much.
And in my book's a fantasy novel. Okay, it deals with characters that he did interact with, most of them, uh, and but it's strictly from a fantasy point of view. My book is not a biography. Okay, and it plays hard and loose with. It's meant to be taken as such. Imagine if you know how popular the Indiana Jones movie, and you got uh, 3 or 4 of them, and they're just great. And we love Indiana Jones. We love his character, uh, and he's on all these mystical adventures and things like that. What if we would find out, just all of a sudden, that there really was a historic character, Indiana Jones, and he kind of did all of those
Right.
things, but in sort of a normal, understandable, objective reality kind of way, you know. But wouldn't we be so excited to say, "Oh, Indiana Jones! Oh God!" And he started his own religion, you know. God, I want to find out more about this guy. Okay, not that the movie Indiana Jones was inaccurate. It was accurate on a mythological level, and that's what I tried to do with the book Young Aleister Crowley. And I try to stay true to his character as I've seen it. And he did live a multi-dimensional, multi time sequence kind of life. Okay, and he did uh, uh, as far as at least I'm able to observe and determine, he did systematically achieve levels of consciousness that are strived for by holy men of every age and every culture. But he did it in such a unique way and gave voice to what was happening at, in such a unique way that involved Kabbalah, involved mythological mysticism. He turned it into a very interesting science, if you will. And and as you can imagine, there was only about 6 people on the planet. Oh, there are more than that eventually, but there are very, very few people that were kind of already weird enough to go, "Oh, I think I get what he's saying."
Right.
This is like an Englishman, a spoiled English Buddha talking to me here, you know, and 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 those people got it, and of course, some of them were already successful, influential people, and some of them were just on the threshold of mystical payoff themselves. And they say, oh, he's just put into words what I've been trying to explain to myself.
Mm-hmm.
That same thing was happening, attitude was happening culturally in the 1960s.
Mm-hmm.
That's why the Beatles put Crowley on the cover of Sgt. Pepper. That's there's a whole culture that was now in that place that those 6 or 7 people in Crowley's life were at. You had the whole movement, world movement of
Mm-hmm.
spiritual thought ready to receive that message.
I love that. It creates this tantalizing. There's a breakthrough moment where things start to click in for him, but at some point he's like a perverted poet, Cambridge boy, hanging out with spies, writing about his lover's farts, writing poems about his lover's farts and sniffing them and liking that. And then he's hanging out with these people who would go on to like rule the world. And at some point, that guy, who's leaving behind dad and his apocalypsia, and he's headed out. And then how does he find his people and like get to that point where he's able to click things together? And some of that happens maybe on the mountaintop, but like, yeah, who does he eventually meet? What happens?
It's not so much who he meets. Everyone he meets, in a way, becomes a teacher. But his own breakthrough came in the form of his own mystical revelations, and Crowley's timing, Crowley's role is a little bit different than most spiritual seekers' role. There comes a time, there are flashes in human history where for one reason or another, and it's usually our understanding of our place in the universe. Like for a long time, we thought the sun died every day. Okay. And we're thinking that the sun died every day. That colored absolutely everything. Crowley called it the magical formula. It colored absolutely everything in our consciousness, in our behavior, in the way we looked at ourselves. When the sun died every day, we'd look at ourselves and think, well, I'm going to die. But the sun comes up every day, so that means I'm going to have to die and come up, and die and come up, and a whole religion gets formed about priestcraft forming, saying, if you follow our rules, we'll make sure the sun comes up every day, and as long as you follow their rules. And this way back almost in prehistory, some smart guy said, look, the sun might not come back. Okay, if you do this, if you do this dance, or if you kill this slave, or if you I'll guarantee you the sun will come up. Okay, and as long as you keep doing it, the sun's going to come up.
When you think about it, a good deal, one human sacrifice every so often is a good deal for the sun.
Yeah, to save everybody else.
Right.
Well, that's a magical formula, okay, and that bleeds through to everything else that you do, and your own sense of self and position in the cosmos. But once you find out, and it really sinks in for the vast majority of the people on the planet, wait a minute, the sun's on all the time. And I'm just on a, oh, gee, what an idiot I've been for the last 6,000 years. The earth is, I'm just standing in the shadow. So deep down inside, you know that, oh, wait, I don't die. I'm on all the time, just like the sun. And what I used to think is sleep, what I used to think was death, is just a temporary standing in my own shadow. And there's a continuation of the consciousness of the continuity of my existence. That's big stuff. And that big revelation didn't occur to humanity until about 150 years ago, when it finally sunk in to enough consciousness units that, wait a minute, I don't have to bring the sun up every day. It's on all the time. I'm on all the time. And that revelation, that mystical revelation of a new self-identity in human consciousness, Crowley was at the right time and in the right place, and just crazy enough and just audacious enough to give voice to revelation. Okay. And it's not like he set out to do it, or anything. It was like he was positioned to do it, and he had the language, the poetic language, to give voice to that. And giving voice to the next step in human consciousness is the very definition of the word prophet. A prophet is a guy that can see what's going on and is not afraid to give voice to it. It's going to be an unpopular bit of news to everyone who's invested in the old way of looking at things. So this is why it appears, just generally, knee-jerk reaction to Crowley is, oh, he's anti-Christian. Well, he's not anti-Jesus, the teacher. Okay, he's anti the sun dies.
Yeah, right.
You could just almost grunt out his new message: "Sun live."
Wow, yeah.
Yeah. So Crowley's unfolding, Crowley's personal magical journey in very important ways is just exactly like all of our magical journeys, and just like what's been described in the Bhagavad Gita, or just like what is described in any of the holy texts of the past. It's a personal kind of technology. That's no big secret. Okay. Basically, it's just that we're asleep to what we are. And not only that, but we're asleep to what we are, but we're dreaming that we're asleep in that dream, and dreaming inside that dream, and inside the, okay, Kabbalists say we're asleep and dreaming in 10 levels. Each of those levels is a waking up. Oh gosh, now that was stupid. But there's another level above that you wake up into. I love that movie, Inception. Is that the name of it?
Yeah.
I love that movie. Okay, because in a sense, At every step, it's a peeling away of what you are not, and an awakening to a better, a clearer idea of what you are. And
Mm.
we're all hardwired with that same sort of glass onion structure. And you don't have to be trapped in any kind of specific doctrine. You don't have to give names for every one of these that agree with everybody else's different names of those level. It happens to all of us. We're hardwired in the same way.
Mm-hmm.
We're already illuminated. We're just asleep within that illumination.
Are you enjoying this conversation with Lon Milo Duquette? I cannot believe I got to have this conversation. If you love content like this that blends occultism with relational arts, with politics, with sociology, with philosophy, then support The Container. If you're watching this on YouTube, like, subscribe, and leave a comment. Those things really, really help. If you're listening to this on Apple or Spotify, rate and review. I would like to thank all the people who go to patreon.com/The Container and they commit to making that small monthly contribution every month. It really means a lot, and it helps pay for the show. And it means that more content like this gets to be made. I mean, how cool is that? All right, now back to our conversation with Lon Milo Duquette. I want to stick on this point of doctrine because I think something Crowley does really well is he speaks through mythology and lots of syncretism. Like the 777 is like this eye-crossingly long, horribly bad formatted list of tables of like, this Hebrew letter equals this tarot card equals this hexagram from I Ching. Anyways, it's like probably the worst consumer product ever devised, but it's, you know, it shows he's brilliant at able to like translate all of this stuff. And when you read his writings, like his Book of Thoth, it's like I tried to read that to understand the cards more, and then I understood them, if anything, way less. So reading his writing, it's like, so his writing, though, there's something about, you can feel the poet in him, but there's this way he uses doctrine or the mythology and the sense of mystical knowledge and like labeling everything as almost a literary form rather than engaging it like if you read the Catechism of the Catholic Church, another very beautiful document, but it's kind of in a different tone. It's sort of, it's telling you things in a very set in marble kind of way. And Crowley, is, it's almost just, it's this, like being at the shore and these waves come crashing down, and there's so much, and it's just such a different way to use doctrine. I'm curious if that's what it's like in Thelema. I've never been in Thelema, but like, how do you hold that together, that way he deals with doctrine?
Well, Thelemically, you know, you can't. Thelema is such uh, a broad and free concept. It's hard to even label it as doctrine.
Oh, okay.
Okay?
And just for the listener, Thelema is a religion established by Crowley.
Yeah,
Is that fair enough?
yeah, that's fair enough. It's basically the watchword is, you can encapsulate it with "Do what thou wilt shall be the whole of the law," and if you can take that ball and run with it, that doesn't mean do whatever you want. It's do what thou wilt, okay? And so you have to think of things in terms of will and your personal will. It's not just willpower, like you grit your teeth. But basically, when you start to take that ball and run with it yourself. You eventually come to a point of where, what am I here for? Okay.
Mm.
And and e- eventually you come to a spot where there's a reason why I'm here. Otherwise, I wouldn't be considering why I am here. And in the sense that throws you into the same position as the divine singularity of the cosmos, the divine singularity of existence, being perfectly fine, being a wall to wall smooth point of super cool, smooth absoluteness. And then all of a sudden has some kind of itch to want to know itself, to become self aware.
Mm.
Okay. And after it does that, then that just kicks off a whole creation cycle and everything falls down. Yeah. If there's an original sin, it's that. But but when you come to the conclusion that, as screwed up as your life is, and as unhappy as you may feel that you are, or as happy as you feel you are, or as adrift in the universe as you feel that you might be, you wouldn't even be here drawing breath in and out and contemplating this unless there was an important thing that only you can do in the universe. And if there wasn't a reason why you're here, that's your will.
Mm.
And when you have some kind of inkling of what that is, then you have no right to do anything else until you find out what that is and set to work to do it. Okay, that in a sense, people say, "Oh, well, you're God. You think you're God?" No, I think I'm me. And there's a God, that's me too. Okay, and so that's the basic structure of Thelema. Now Crowley had great plans to set up a scientific, systematic program of study and exercises that correspond to these different levels of awakening. Now that would be Crowley's thelemic magic, okay, per se. But Thelema itself, I'm sorry, we're all ultimately uh, except the fact that we are not possessed with a will, but are an expression of that one thing that only we can do.
Mm.
Otherwise, we wouldn't bother ourselves with the distraction of being conscious.
It's so fascinating the way that we live in a time when self-actualization in that way is more available now than it's ever been. In some senses, it's like we're like at a just the amount of technology available, like, or the certain kinds of information technology makes like anything you want to learn, you can learn. I mean, depending on where you live and what you have access to, but there is this sense of like Crowley was calling that there's like this new path being made available, or it's some kind of more self-actualization based path that's becoming more and more available. And then yeah, and so it just kind of changes our relationship to that. Yeah, that itch of knowing or something. It's so different. The world I live in is so much different from a peasant in France in the Middle Ages, where it's like going to a cathedral is like maybe a much more appropriate path for them or something. I'm just, as I'm listening to you, I'm just like noticing his surfing the aeons and just feeling out what is available now, and like what the path is now or can be. You can really feel him too on the mountain. You can feel him, like the perspective you get on the mountain and being up there and adventurous and yeah, it's so exciting. There's something very heroic about him.
Oh yeah, oh yeah, and which is a perfect character for a novel.
Yeah.
It makes a perfect character for a novel. Um, but it didn't start as a novel. It started as a screenplay. Okay, and I don't write screenplays, but this was about, oh God, 15 years ago. I was approached to write a screenplay. Well, I was paid to write screenplays, but they said they'd pay me, so I did it, and I really enjoyed it too. But the heroicness of this flawed character, and Crowley was flawed. I think that's one of the things that attracted me the most and comforted me the most about his character. He was so human, okay, so transparent, and when he was, he could have been a real jerk. And throughout his life, there were periods of time when, as a byproduct of his uh, spiritual explorations, uh, he went on a cocaine period. Okay, and in that period, he wrote some of the most fantastic uh, things you can only describe as holy books.
Mm-hmm.
He just didn't take cocaine and go to parties. Okay. These holy books are, and not only that, but his mind was so active, and he could translate so fluidly his thoughts into almost verse like uh, words and sentences. During the cocaine years, you have to look for a long time before you see punctuation. Period somewhere on this.
How annoying would it be to spend time with Crowley during his coke years? That would be so chewing his tongue off, talking about the whore of Babylon, and so just golly, give it a rest, man.
Yeah, I have to admit, no, he died before, a few months before I was born, and I don't have any delusions of being in his company in a previous incarnation or anything else. If I was, I've mercifully pushed that away because I don't think I would have got along with the guy. Okay,
Mm-hmm.
there was too much to overlook. That I'm just too impatient to overlook those things. So I'm glad I'm a generation removed.
Do you think that the shadow side of Crowley is kind of necessary? Like, do you have to be that radically free from not just mores, but like a lot of conventional morality? Some of the things he's accused of doing are and I guess I don't really know what to make of different accusations, but it's just like to get to, is that part of what's required to see so much, is to be completely unbounded in that way, or is it just like something about? Do you think about Crowley as a man?
It was necessary for him.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, uh, my shadow shit is just as weird as anybody's, but it certainly wasn't like his.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, uh, the up until you've gained almost Buddhahood across the abyss, thinking where all opposites are reconciled. Up
Mm.
up until that point, the brighter the light, the brighter the shadow,
Mm.
or the shadow, and so you take it all with you until you realize it's been the same thing all along, and that is a concept that we really can't adequately wrap our meat brains around, or as the Kabbalists say, our ruach. Okay, our intellect can only take us so far. Above that, you have to uh, use your ruach to trick yourself out of the ruach,
Mm-hmm.
yourself over the ruach into a place where there is no duality. And what Crowley was good at, and most people miss this, what Crowley was good at, if you read him correctly, is how to trick yourself using your ruach and using duality and such to overcome duality. The the magic word that overcomes that is love.
Mm.
Okay, so it's do what thou wilt shall be the whole of the law. Love is the law. Love under will. Okay, that connects that. What am I here for? you know,
Mm.
what is my will? Okay, uh, it's your will to to embrace that law, and that law is love. You listen to any corny old prophet from the past; they're saying the same damn thing.
Don't you hate that?
Yeah. Love is a force. Okay, I can
Mm.
stick my finger into this lamp here, okay, and it would shock me. That
Mm.
shock, that electricity is a force. Okay, love is a force, just like that, just like the four forces of nature. The electromagnetic, the strong force, weak force. Love is a force, and it's an alternating current. And Crowley's trying to get you. You can't think your way out of duality. You can only love yourself out of duality, and
Mm.
that's where the devotional thing with Crowley really shines. But at first you think, oh my God, he's worshiping the whore of Babylon. Well, yeah, uh, because she's across the abyss. Okay. She's
Mm.
opened herself up to everything and rejects nothing. Okay. So falling in love, even in a corny old high school, crush kind of thing, falling head over heels, gaga in love with God, and being able, and it's a two-part thing, being able and totally willing to accept that same intensity of that love force that you're giving out, being ready to receive that back. Now, lots of people have no problem falling in love. They have a real problem in being loved.
Mm. Mm-hmm.
And that's where Crowley's devotional works uh, are very informative. And you can tell that when Crowley falls in love, and actually he fell in love with women too, uh, mostly, toward the end. Uh, Layla, okay, Layla Waddell, New Zealand concert violinist, virtuoso, famous in her own right. Gorgeous gal, looked a little bit like Morticia Adams, And he was so in love with her that without even trying, he turned her into a goddess, a devotional goddess. And here it comes where you're starting to mix up human sexuality with these high spiritual concepts. If you can get a hold of a little book, it's like a fat pamphlet called The Book of Lies. Crowley's. There's several chapters on Layla, and you can see in his wall-to-wall love of the infinite that she embodied to him. Okay, and it's not unique to Crowley and Crowley's sexual proclivities. Ramakrishna. Okay, I love Ramakrishna. He's Vivekananda's guru. Ramakrishna was as wild and crazy as Crowley was. Okay, I don't know if you're familiar with Sri Ramakrishna. And his wife or his girlfriend was he called the Divine Mother, and he had that same relationship. Ramakrishna and Divine Mother just could have easily been Hokma and Bina on the Tree of Life, or Shiva and Shakti in the Hindu way of looking at things. And they were making it work. They were at that level of consciousness, but that there wasn't two of them. Okay.
I just got married 2 weeks ago, and as you're saying that, I'm like, these are massive relationship goals, but very, I love that, connecting that kind of romantic love. It really went at its highest octaves that I've experienced of it. It really does feel like one and the same. There's just no difference between prayer and being just goo goo gaga in love with this woman. Yeah.
I'm all for that. That might be a magic word. Goo goo gaga.
Then finally one I can pronounce. That's what I like. Amazing. I'm curious. So this is I kind of, with our time remaining, I want to dig into the novel, because this is it's so fun. I know you've written one other novel, and this one you kind of started I imagine before, because in An Accidental Christ, your first novel, came out in 2023. So this project probably predates that even.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. So then I'm curious, like, you've probably only written about 200 nonfiction books. But you've written so much, but it's rarely fiction. So I'm curious, like, shifting into fiction mode and being a magician, like, how much of this is just channeling Crowley? How much, like, how different really is fiction writing? Yeah, I guess I'm curious about how Lon Milo Duquette shifts into fiction mode. That to me seems so magical.
Well, I like to play.
Yeah.
And as serious as things are and stuff, I'm a playful, goofy person. I was a class clown, but at first it seemed like a job. And Jim Brakowski, my partner on this, or co-conspirator, um, is a filmmaker, and he sort of kept me along cinematic um, lines, but I've always been a movie nut. Movies was my church. I was
Mm-hmm.
raised in Columbus, Nebraska. Um, a Methodist. I've been an atheist since I was in the crib. No exaggeration. Uh, but I went to church and I loved the church building, and I got to be in the church building alone a lot because I had little chores I did at church and sang in the choir and stuff. But the movies was my church. It gave me everything religion should give me: adventure, inspiration, beautiful women, um, and I was allowed in Columbus to go to the theater twice a week on Saturday.
Nice.
That's when the movies changed, and if they were double features, I could see 4 movies in a weekend, and sometimes I'd sit and see them over and over and over again. Okay, so I think cinematically. I already do, and I've always kind of hooked that up to this is how my mind is expanded. Okay, and I didn't care if the movies were good or bad. I went to movies that my friends I went with, their mothers came in and drug them out and said, "Oh, you can't see a place in the sun with naughty Lon," you know.
Great
And
movie.
yeah, it is a great movie.
Mm-hmm.
But anyway, um, so Jim asked me to do it, and he said, "Look, I'll buy you this final draft screenwriting program. Okay, it doesn't write the screenplay. You you gotta do it, but you can just think in your mind, and there's just a couple of like shorthand keystrokes that format absolutely everything. Okay, I want somebody to say this, and you just go like that, and it's already set up, and then you just type out the dialogue. Okay, good. And then that scene changes. There's just 2 strokes, and it's all set up. It was so wonderful, and for so many years, I've lived with the ghost of Aleister Crowley, and,
Mm.
and all of the people of the Golden Dawn. They've become caricatures. It,
This is the magical society that made up his early initiation and education in magic. Yeah.
and I decided right away I wanted to focus on young, naive, wild, and crazy Crowley during the Golden Dawn years, because he had all of those other famous characters. Okay, it's just ripe for a comic book or.
Right.
And, well, I don't want to jinx that, um, but so I love that period. Then there's characters I invented, and then only a page or 2 after I invent a character, put the character in with the other characters that have already been established. They write themselves. I had no idea except for just really a basic outline of where this was going, because I wanted to stop uh, where I've stopped to set the stage, perhaps for the later years. The characters take on a life of their own. You hear other writers talk about it. No, it's absolutely true. It's just like every day when you sit down to the computer, and I always read things from the very beginning up to where I am. So the further along I get in the book, the longer it takes me to get to the next paragraph. and I edit all the way I work. Takes me a long time. Um, it's just like I jump in the room with all of these characters, just as if they're sitting around waiting to write themselves in. Okay, their own motivations take over. Their own character colors that motivation, and
Mm.
and it almost writes itself. And so that became just flat out fun. Okay, most everything else I write, I enjoy writing it, but it's like a textbook.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, I write textbooks in such a way as I'm trying to keep the reader awake, and actually it's trying to keep me awake, and but it's just plain fun. And the Accidental Christ, Llewellyn has let it go out of print just a couple of years ago, and the people at Red Feather Schiffer said, "Can we have it?" And so I beefed that up and got that, so that'll be out again in spring.
Mm.
But I enjoyed doing that. Okay. But this one in particular, because it was originally made for film, and it only turned into a book when the film company that was optioning it was funded by the UK Film Council, and the screenwriters had to be British to get the matching funds. There is no British film or UK Film Council anymore, but at the time that was it. So it was a Canadian film company. So they said, all you have to do is turn your screenplay into a novel, and then we'll pay the novelist, okay, and just hire a screenwriter, and you get the points. So yeah, all you had to do is turn it into a novel, and that's when I went into novel writing mode.
Mm-hmm.
And in the interim time, now it's being redone as a 12-part episodic television thing. Uh,
Mm-hmm.
and so the new version of it, the Young Aleister Crowley edition's Revolt, is now. And the book wasn't really released. Okay, the old book for the Canadians just was written to get the ISBN number and the Library of Congress number. Okay, that was the only reason. Self-published. Uh,
Mm-hmm.
but uh, now there's I talk about it in in my introduction, the wild roller coaster of how it came into being.
There's something so magical about you wrote a screenplay that became a novel so that it could become a screenplay. There's something about that I know the alchemical process. I might not know a lot, but I know alchemy when I see it. There's something about that that's just so
I,
mysterious and
I wasn't going to bring it up. But yes, solve coagula calcification.
that's right.
It's out of a cucurbite, my entrepreneur of.
Yeah, like what, like how can people, if they want more Lon Milo Duquette, like how do they get more of you?
Oh, well, probably the first place to start would be uh, my website, or my commercial kind of website, which is lonmiloduquette.net, not .com, but .net. And there's links to my music, links to my books, and fun things like the book before this one, last year's book. was um, the the tarot architect, which is really like a installing the tarot in you kind of thing. And there's a meditation video and with the right notes of the music that goes with the yeah LonMiloDuquette.net. But if you just go to just Google Lon Milo Duquette. I've got a YouTube channel, and I'm on Substack, and um, every morning since the pandemic, 7 days a week, on my Facebook page, I do a half-hour show every day, and whether I have anything to say or not.
That's a good slug line for the project.
And as a matter of fact, I just did 1.5 before we went on, and that is repeated every day on YouTube on the Arcanum Luminarium thing. If you just Google YouTube Lon Milo Duquette, you'll get the daily show. You won't get it live, but you'll get it a half hour later or something like that. And so there's that. Okay. And I have, if you want to hear my music for free, go to Lon Milo Duquette at Reverb Nation. But if you want to actually make me happy and buy my music, you can go to Spotify or any of the classic things. You said you listened to Young Aleister on the. I was so ecstatically pleased with the narrator.
The performance is great. It's really good.
It's like almost like old-fashioned radio drama.
Yeah.
The guy is absolutely wonderful. Does all the accents because there's several accents and subtle accents like different varieties of Irish accents between Bram Stoker and Yeats, and the guy's really good. Okay, and he's over the top. Just I was so pleased. And so even if you've got the paperback and read it, or the Kindle and read it, just to put it in the car and listen to it. It's just so great. So.
I can vouch for that. It's a wonderful audiobook. Lon Milo Duquette, thank you so much. I'm feeling so much gratitude, and your writing has been so fundamental to my journey into the mysteries, and I wouldn't be here today without so many of your books and the help that they've given me. So, and I know I speak for so many people. So thank you. And with that, the container is now closed.